Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to speak to you about the victor who returns, not the one who quits at the first sign of trouble, not the one who runs when the enemy roars, but the one who comes back to the battle after being knocked down. Life is not a straight path to success. It is filled with valleys of disappointment, dark nights of doubt, and storms that threaten to sink your faith. But the true victor is not the one who never faces hardship. Victory is often misunderstood. We think of it as a pristine achievement, a flawless record, a life untouched by failure or defeat. We admire champions who seem invincible, who appear to glide from one success to another without a single misstep. But the truth about real victory is much more rugged, more human, and more meaningful. Victory is not defined by perfection. It is forged in the crucible of perseverance. It is about the person who refuses to quit, even when everything in them screams that it would be easier to give up. It is about the soul who knows failure intimately, who has felt the sharp sting of disappointment, but who rises again despite the wounds. Perfection is an illusion that paralyzes us. It sets a standard no one can reach, so that many never even try. They tell themselves, "I'll act when I'm ready. I'll speak when I'm sure. I'll serve when I'm perfect." And so they wait forever. They let opportunities slip through their fingers because they fear the possibility of falling short. Perseverance, on the other hand, is rooted in humility. It acknowledges imperfection. It accepts that mistakes will happen. It knows that growth requires risk, that progress demands failure along the way. The one who perseveres doesn't deny their shortcomings. They embrace the process that transforms weakness into strength. Think of the great figures in history and faith who embodied perseverance. None of them was perfect. Moses ran from his calling and argued with God about his own inadequacy. David was anointed king, but spent years fleeing for his life, made grave moral failures, and yet returned to seek God's heart. Peter denied even knowing Jesus in his darkest hour, but was restored to lead and strengthen others. What set these people apart was not their perfection. It was their refusal to stay down. They were willing to return, to repent, to try again. They accepted the painful lessons of failure as necessary training for their ultimate calling. Perseverance is victory because it changes who you are. Perfection might look impressive on the outside, but it produces pride, fragility, and fear of failure. Perseverance, by contrast, develops character. It teaches endurance, resilience, and hope. It produces a depth of faith that cannot be shaken by circumstances because it has been tested and proven true. We often think of victory as the finish line, the moment of triumph everyone can see, but true victory happens long before the public celebration. It happens in the private decision to keep going when no one is watching. It is the mother who keeps praying for her child night after night. It is the worker who gives their best even when the boss doesn't notice. It is the patient who keeps hoping through setback after setback. Victory is not a single moment of glory, but a lifetime of faithfulness. It is a series of small, courageous choices to return, to try, to believe, even when the odds are daunting, even when the heart is tired, even when failure feels final. And make no mistake, those who persevere will know failure. They will have scars. They will have stories of embarrassment, regret, and loss. But they will also have the wisdom and strength that come only from walking through the fire and refusing to be consumed. There is something deeply authentic about victory born of perseverance. It is accessible to everyone, not just the naturally gifted or the outwardly successful. It belongs to the ordinary person who decides they will not give up. It is the quiet, tenacious, everyday heroism that transforms families, communities, and even nations. When we let go of the idol of perfection, we free ourselves to truly live. We give ourselves permission to fail, and therefore permission to grow. We stop comparing ourselves to an impossible ideal and instead focus on the next step forward. The path to victory is not smooth or easy. It is rough, marked by setbacks and stumbles, but each time we choose to stand up again, we move closer to the person we were meant to be. Not perfect, but persevering, not flawless, but faithful, not untouched by failure, but undefeated by it, Victory is not found in never falling. It is found in rising every single time we do. Faith is not a passive feeling. It is not merely the quiet assent of the mind or the recitation of well-rehearsed words. Faith is an active, living force that calls us into the battle. It is a commitment to keep going even when the path grows dark, to keep believing even when hope seems thin, and to keep standing even when everything pushes us to retreat. Many want faith to be a shelter from struggle, a guarantee that life will be easy or that problems will disappear the moment we believe, but that is not the faith described in Scripture or seen in the lives of those who have truly walked with God. Faith is not an escape from conflict, but a reason to re-enter it. Returning to the fight means acknowledging that life will not always be kind. There will be real opposition. Fear that paralyzes, doubt that corrodes, circumstances that break the heart. There will be the enemy of your soul whispering that you're not enough, that you've failed too many times, that you're better off giving up. Yet faith refuses to accept defeat as final. It does not deny the pain or gloss over the wounds. It recognizes them, laments them, but refuses to be mastered by them. Faith has the audacity to return to the very place of loss or failure, believing that God can redeem what was broken, restore what was lost, and bring victory from the ashes of defeat. Consider the story of those who have suffered profound disappointment. The one who loses a job they thought was secure, the one whose marriage dissolves despite every effort, the one whose prayers seem to go unanswered for years. Faith is not pretending these losses don't hurt. It is choosing to get up the next day and keep trusting, keep loving, keep serving. It is returning to the fight for hope when hopelessness feels more reasonable. Faith is always portrayed as active and resilient. It is Abraham setting out for a land he did not know, trusting a promise he could not yet see. It is Joseph forgiving his brothers and choosing to save them even after they betrayed him. It is Nehemiah rebuilding Jerusalem's walls with a sword in one hand and a trowel in the other, undeterred by threats and mockery. Faith does not guarantee that you will never fall. It guarantees that you will have the strength to rise again. It recognizes that there will be days of exhaustion, tears, and doubt, but it refuses to let those days define the story. It knows there is more ahead, that God is not finished, that the fight is worth returning to even when you've already been knocked down. Returning to the fight means showing up in prayer even when God seems silent. It means forgiving again even when your heart is still bruised. It means serving even when you feel unappreciated. It means proclaiming hope when cynicism feels easier and safer. It means choosing to build when it would be simpler to abandon. Such faith is not flashy or instantly rewarding. It is often quiet and unseen, but it is unbreakable. It is the foundation on which lives, families, and communities are rebuilt. It is the reason generations can know hope despite the failures of the past. Faith requires returning to the fight because the enemy does not rest. Discouragement will return, temptation will persist, grief will visit uninvited, and in the face of these relentless forces, only a faith that chooses to come back again and again can endure. This returning is not just about personal strength. It is about trust in something greater than ourselves. It is knowing that God goes before us, that His strength is made perfect in our weakness, and that His purposes are not defeated by our setbacks. Faith's power lies not in shielding us from hardship, but in empowering us to walk through it without surrendering to despair. It is the quiet resolve to take up our armor one more time, to step back onto the battlefield with scars that testify not to our failure, but to God's sustaining grace. Faith, therefore, is not for the faint of heart. It is for those willing to return to the fight, even wounded, even weary, even afraid. It is for those who know that victory is not the absence of struggle, but the refusal to yield to it. There is a profound and often overlooked truth about the struggles we face. Our battles are not fought in isolation. Though pain can make us feel alone, The way we respond to adversity has the power to shape the lives of those around us. Your comeback, the moment you rise after defeat, is not just about you. It becomes a beacon for others. Human beings are wired to learn from example. We watch one another closely, often more than we realize. When someone refuses to give up in the face of hardship, it resonates deeply. It stirs something in us that says, if they can do it, maybe I can too. It gives permission to hope again. This is why your comeback matters so much. When you choose to return after failure, disappointment, or heartbreak, you send a powerful message to everyone watching. You show that defeat is not destiny. You prove that the story isn't over just because it took a dark turn. Think of the people in your life who have inspired you the most. Were they the flawless, untested always, successful ones, or were they the ones who struggled but refused to quit? The parent who sacrificed and worked tirelessly despite setbacks? The friend who faced sickness with unshakable faith? The teacher who saw potential in you even when you couldn't see it yourself? These are the people who change us, not because they were perfect, but because they were willing to try again. Their courage became contagious. Their resilience gave us permission to hope in our own struggles. Your comeback can have that same effect. It becomes a testimony, not of your own strength alone, but of the grace that carried you through, of the faith that sustained you when nothing made sense. It tells others that restoration is possible, that failure is not final, and that there is purpose even in pain. When you choose to rebuild what was broken, you offer hope to those standing in the ruins of their own dreams. When you choose to forgive someone who wronged you deeply, you show that reconciliation is possible even after betrayal. When you choose to love again after loss, you prove that grief does not have to be the end of the story. Your comeback challenges the lie that some wounds can never heal. It declares that scars can be signs of survival, not shame. It reminds those who watch you that they, too, can endure, even thrive, after heartbreak, loss, or failure. Consider the power of shared stories. How many people have been encouraged by hearing about someone who fought cancer and survived, or by seeing an addict rebuild their life in sobriety, or by witnessing someone who was crushed by grief find joy again? These stories are not just about the individuals who lived them. They become gifts to the world, sources of strength for countless others. But it is not only grand, dramatic comebacks that matter. Even the small, daily acts of returning speak volumes. The parent who keeps showing up for their child despite exhaustion, the spouse who continues to love through seasons of difficulty, the friend who keeps reaching out even after rejection. These quiet acts of faithfulness can be even more powerful than dramatic turnarounds because they show that courage can be woven into the fabric of everyday life. Your comeback also disrupts the culture of giving up. We live in an age that often celebrates quitting when things get hard. Relationships end over minor disagreements. Commitments are abandoned at the first obstacle. Hope is traded for cynicism. When you return, when you stay, when you try again, you offer an alternative. You model perseverance, patience, and the deep, stubborn belief that some things are worth fighting for. What you overcome in private has public consequences. The strength you gain in your own trial equips you to comfort others in theirs. The insight you gain from failure allows you to guide others with compassion instead of judgment. The hope you cling to in the dark becomes a light for those still lost in their own night. Your comeback is not just about personal triumph. It is an act of service. It becomes a living testimony that can change hearts, lift spirits, and turn lives around. In a world desperate for hope, every act of rising again becomes an invitation for others to believe that they can rise too.